Good morning, everybody. How are you? Aloha. Thank you for coming. My name is Rob Hack from the Hawaii Pacific Export Council. You probably know us very well by now, but if you don't, we are a nonprofit based here in Honolulu with the express focus of teaching companies about exporting topics. And this is one in our series of seminars this year on export-related issues. A topic today is e-commerce for exporters. This is a topic that we've covered in some detail in the past, but today we're really going to get into the weeds and the nitty-gritty of e-commerce for exporters. We are able to put on these seminars because of a generous grant from DBET, the Department of Business, Economic Development and Tourism, who in turn receives a grant from the Small Business Administration in Washington, D.C. So we have to thank them expressly for that money that allows us to put on these seminars. We also thank the Foreign Trade Zone here for allowing us to use this wonderful facility to do that. So if Mark, could you come up and say a few words on behalf of DBET? And Mark will also explain a bit about the High Step program, which this seminar falls under.
Aloha, everyone. My name is Mark Ritchie. I work at DBET in the Business Development and Support Division, and we're the ones that received the Small Business Administration grant that allows this program to take place. So just for some of you who are new to High Step, the Hawaii State Trade Expansion Program, it has three components. One component is an educational component, that's these sessions, and also as part of that, we do business advising. And these sessions are run by HPEC, and then the business advising, our partners are the Hawaii Pacific Export Council, the Small Business Development Center, and then the Patsy Mink Center, and then also Innovate Hawaii, which is at the Hawaii Technology Development Corporation, which they help, Innovate Hawaii helps companies with scaling up with your manufacturing. If you're going into an export market, you need to be thinking about how you're going to meet increased orders. The other two components are the Hawaii pavilions, where we take groups of companies to overseas trade shows. I know a lot of companies know about the Tokyo International Gift Show, but we have some flyers here in the back. It's both sides, some of the pavilions that we'll be doing, and also the ones the Department of Agriculture will be doing here. And then lastly, we have an individual company assistance that's available. Our awards for this year have been made, but the next cycle will be towards the end of the year and in early January. To get into the High Step system so we know about you and you can start taking advantage of sort of the business advising component of High Step, we ask you to go to the DBET website. It's invest.hawaii.gov and go to the High Step, the pull down from exporting, and click on that, and then you can read about the program, and then there's a registration form in there where you tell us about yourself, like where are you currently exporting, or if you have a business plan, what's your current revenue, and then that'll get you in the system, and then someone from one of our partner organizations will be contacting you to see how we can help you and what services you can take advantage of from our collaboration from DBET, SBA, and then HPEC, SBDC, Patsy Mink Center, and Innovate Hawaii. Thank you, and my cards are in the back if anyone wants to give me a call or has any questions. Thank you very much, Rob.
Thank you. I'm going to briefly show you this other website so that you know that we record these videos and we put them on the HPEC YouTube channel. So that is key for me to go over my disclaimer here that this is a public forum. Anything, questions you ask will likely be in a public forum and will be on our YouTube channel at some point. So I also have to remind you we have really three audiences, therefore. One is you, and thank you very much for coming. You're the live audience, but we're broadcasting this out simultaneously to the neighbor islands via live stream. So they will ask questions as well as I hope you ask a lot of questions. And then the third audience is we're recording this for posterity. So in about a week, possibly 2 weeks, this will be on our YouTube channel here. Okay, I'm very excited to have today's presentation. Let me bring it up. Mr. Gary Wells is Managing Director of Webmaster Services Hawaii. He is a Oahu's expert on e-commerce. We're lucky to have him here. What we're going to do is go through the presentation, and there'll be breaks sort of in between. At topic breaks for Gary, we'll solicit questions along the way, and of course the neighbor islands are typing in questions as well. Okay, so there'll be plenty of opportunity for Q&A. Just be a little bit patient while we go through the presentation. And then at the end, Gary will be around to talk to you one-on-one about any topics that you might have. Okay, so just bear with me 1 second while I get this shared with our neighbor island colleagues. And with that, I'll turn it over to Gary, who will, from Webmaster Services Hawaii, and we'll talk about e-commerce for exporters. Thank you.
Good morning, everyone. Good morning. Is my mic on? Everybody can hear me okay? Everything good? Okay. So today we're going to be going over some e-commerce and where e-commerce is now and where it's going. And I got some very interesting stats for you that could help you with your exporting. You okay? No. How's that? There we go. Okay. So let's go to the first slide, and I can just give you a little bit more information about me. So like he was saying, I'm the Managing Director of Webmaster Services Hawaii. I've had this business since 2015, but I've been doing web development work since 1999. My past resume is kind of unique. Before 1999, all I did was business development. Since I was 16 years old, I had different businesses that I would run. Started a couple, did a bunch of exporting in the early 2000s. And in 1999, I got an opportunity to go to the mainland and learn technology. So what's greatly helped me is my business background and my technology background, and I merged those two together, and in 2015, I started my company. A couple of the companies that I worked for in mid-2000s was Gannett Pacific Publications. They're the owner of the USA Today, Arizona Republic. They used to, is my mic turning off? I think it turned off again. So.
Maybe just go ahead and speak loudly.
Yeah, that's right. So I worked for some of the larger web development companies in town for the past 10 years. And in 2015, I started my Webmaster Services Hawaii account. Yeah. So these are my current clientele. There's a couple on here that I'm pretty proud of. Yummy's Korean Barbecue, just got them a couple of weeks ago. Dole Plantation, we completely redesigned their website, created a Japanese version, and completely revamped their e-commerce store. Before I came, do you have a?
I'll try.
Let's just shut it down. Sorry about that. So Dole Plantation, when I took the job with those guys to revamp their website, their e-commerce site was not existent. So they had an e-commerce site that was 10 years old, and they were getting maybe 2 to 5 sales a week locally and from Japan. And now they're doing upwards of 50 sales a week, with about 30% of that being off-island. Another site that I just redid for e-commerce is Mutual Publishing. They had kind of the same issue. They had their website, which looked one way, and their e-commerce site looked another way, and there was a complete disconnect between the two, and that wasn't working too well for them either. So we revamped that in December of 2017, and their e-commerce sales have tripled. So Maui Brewing Company is also one of the ones I'm really proud of as well. Did those guys about 2 or 3 years ago. And same situation. They had a main website and their e-commerce store, there was a disconnect. So that's a little bit about me. Let's go to the next slide, please.
Do you still have any good connections at Maui Brewing Company?
I do. They're an ongoing contract with me currently.
I'm just wondering how we can get some beer at these meetings.
I'm looking for the same thing. So what we're going to be going over in this meeting this morning, there's a couple of main topic areas. The first part of it, the section 1, is a lot of stats about e-commerce. What numbers, who's selling what the growth patterns are, and that kind of information. Number 2 is mobile responsive design. Your e-commerce site has to be mobile responsive. More than 50% of the views on e-commerce happen on mobile before they even go to the website on your desktop or make a purchase. They start at mobile. As part of the responsive design. Number 4 is e-commerce trends. What specific things can you add to your website today? These, for the most part, number 4, are things you can add to your website now that don't cost you any money. It's just a way of displaying the content or a couple of different tools to help you do that. Number 5 is SEO and marketing, what works well and what doesn't. I had a gentleman call me yesterday that does bed bug extermination, and he's paying Google AdWords $800 a month. He's getting a little bit of a return from it, but he's been paying that for 2 years now, and there's no way that that's ever going to go away. So I'll give you some tips on that. And number 6 is just where is it going in 2008 and beyond. Okay, this is fun stuff. 2016, $360 billion is what e-commerce did. This is what it's going to do in 2018, $461 billion. That's a huge growth. 15% of all retail purchases are now made online, 16% increase year over year. Every single time I pull numbers like this, the 16 and 17s are accurate. The one that says the number that's going to be next year, it's always off. That number is always bigger than whatever they estimate. 63% prefer to buy on a desktop or laptop computer. So this one here is interesting because I don't know if you guys have ever done it. You ever been on your couch watching a commercial and you see something you like and you jump on your phone and you take a look, right? And then if you need more information, then you go to the desktop. So it starts with mobile, but it always ends there. Would prefer to buy on a tablet or smartphone. Sales are still kind of low here because it's just more difficult to purchase usually on a smartphone. It's easier on a desktop, but that number is growing too. And people still prefer to do it in a brick and mortar, but in my experience, my wife just did this. She went to Bed Bath & Beyond to go buy some drapes for the house. She couldn't find anybody to help her. She couldn't find the selection of the items that she wanted, and she ended up going to Amazon. They still prefer it, but they don't always end up there. Next slide, please. What percentage of all e-commerce is done on Amazon? What's a guess? What do you think?
42.
What number?
42.
40. It's 44% actually is the number that I pulled a couple of days ago. That makes up 4% of all retail sales in the nation. It's unbelievable how much they do. In Japan, guess how much Amazon did last year in Japan? In 2013, they did 390 billion yen. What do you think they did last year? They did 1.1 trillion yen last year on Amazon. That is the #1 Japanese e-commerce site, is Amazon. So, and this is a little off subject, but I don't know if you guys know Amazon FBA, Fulfillment by Amazon. So what you do is you ship your goods to them, their distribution center, wherever you're trying to sell it at, and then they distribute it and sell it to their clients there. That's a different subject, but Amazon is absolutely huge. There's a link that I sent you earlier that has some specifics regarding, and we'll post that online or on the slide a little bit later, about specific ways to handle your Amazon fulfillment in Japan, and I'll share that. We'll share that with you on the slide. Next slide, please. How many of you have been in a store and looked on your phone to comparison shop? Yeah, me too. I do it all the time. 36%, I think that number is actually low. I think it's probably closer to 50%. Most people do check online when they're in a store. 22% percentage of shoppers will research a product on their smartphone while in the store. How many of you check reviews? You go to Yelp? You guys use Yelp a lot? Yeah, so do I. That number should be implemented, or that should be implemented on every single website you do. Nobody cares, well, most people don't care what you say about your product or service. What they do care about is what other people say about your product and service. So if you can have a testimonial slider or a review slider, get those all together, and do not put it on one review page. I've seen that before, where you have a whole long list of reviews. Nobody reads that. But if you're on a specific product and you have somebody saying something nice about your product on that specific page, that's gold. Next slide, please. So anybody have any questions on the stats? I know it's kind of top level. Yeah. Yes, sir.
You said Japan for Amazon. What was the Rakuten competition? How much share is Rakuten?
I know Rakuten, like Amazon is something like 20.3% of the Japanese e-commerce business, and Rakuten's like 20.1. It's right there, but just behind. And then, believe it or not, in Japan, still Yahoo is alive. That's a word you haven't heard in a long time. But in Japan, it's still kicking, and they're roughly 10% of the online e-commerce market. A lot of that has to do because Alibaba owns a lot of Yahoo Japan, so they're able to sort of artificially keep it going. But it's still a major search engine in Japan, too.
Any other questions on stats? Yes, sir.
Yeah. Sorry, Rob, did you put this slide with the Google Docs like last?
No, I could. Since the last time we had a presentation just a few weeks ago, Google has changed their service agreement, and we tested it this morning, it wouldn't work.
Okay, so just a quick recap on the stats. I've been doing specifically e-commerce for 10 years, and all of the numbers point to an uptick and not it going backwards. So if you're going to be doing e-commerce, now is absolutely the best time to do it, because the amount of people that are purchasing, the amount of money that's involved, and the investment sometimes you have to invest to get started in it, it actually makes sense now. If you have a product that people want and you do your marketing in the correct way, it's going to be successful for you.
We just a couple of weeks ago, we had our marketing in Japan seminar. I know some of the faces were here for that, and that presentation is still online, and we uploaded the YouTube video. But I'd like to point out a couple of quick things. As you know, most of the companies that come to our seminars are, when they hear the word exporting, it sort of comes in the ear and it comes out Japan. Okay, that's the first thing. Nobody really thinks about Canada. Nobody really thinks about Mexico first, even though those would be easier. Most of our companies in Hawaii automatically start to think about Japan. That's fine. I know the Japan market extremely well. But the point being that some of you should be looking at Canada first. And we covered in the Marketing in Japan seminar, we covered a lot of numbers and data about Japan-specific activities. And one of the things I think is really interesting is that 62% of all e-commerce in Japan is done from a mobile device, which is a bit different from the United States, right? 62%. But when you think about it, most people in Japan, of the 126 million people, most people live in a large city. And how do you get around in a large city? By subway, by bus, some kind of mass transportation. So when you're on the subway or you're on the bus, what are you doing? Play on your phone or your iPad or what have you, right? So you can understand then why there's so much more e-commerce in Japan. And I'm bringing up this point because, as Gary will get to in a little while, how you set up your website in Hawaii is how a consumer in Japan on the bus or the subway is going to look at it and say, oh, well, that's interesting. Let me just buy that here while I'm here. And the other thing is, if you've ever traveled on a U.S. subway system like San Francisco or Washington, D.C. or New York, usually the internet dies in between stations, right? So you can only sort of do some quick work and then the internet dies while you're in the tunnel, and then you get to the next station, the internet fires up again, so you start typing. But in Japan, it's very, generally speaking, it's very seamless, and the internet works in all of the tunnels and all of the stations, in between stations and what have you. So it's another reason to keep mobile e-commerce always in the front of your mind, especially when you're dealing with Japan. Sorry, please.
That's
go
okay.
ahead.
Okay, so the next part is, if you go back one slide, pretty please.
Sorry, I should have also added, I'm not I just because I have this doesn't mean I'm a fanboy. I like Apple products, but take a guess, what's the percentage of iPhones in total mobile usage in Japan? Anybody? Out of all the mobile phones in Japan, what is the iPhone percentage use?
80%.
No, 90. 90.
Wow.
90. And especially for e-commerce applications, right? 90% of all mobile purchases in Japan came from an iPhone. It's pretty remarkable data, actually. Sorry.
Okay, so that transitions nicely into mobile. Okay, so developed societies now sit within arm's reach of the world's information. Most of any product is available 24 hours a day, and there's some key elements to that. The first one is omni-channel. Mobile fuels the ability of a retailer to get in contact with their consumers in multiple ways. Mobile devices, tablets, sometimes through your car now. I think Google Auto is in a lot of cars, but not all of them, but it's coming into more, and they do marketing through that now. Marketing directly through instant messaging, mobile coupons, and mobile apps. Has anybody, what's your favorite app? Everybody have Amazon, the Amazon app? Who has that? Has anybody here developed one, created their own? Has anybody done one? That's interesting.
I tried to make an Alexa skill.
Are they?
I tried to make one.
Did you?
Yeah, it wasn't very useful.
If you're not like a huge newspaper or Amazon, then there's absolutely no reason for an app. If you develop your website correctly, it should have the functionality that an app would have in order for people to buy subscription-based servicing or mobile responsive. You should be fine without that. You don't need that. Mobile apps, if you try to develop one, you're looking at 15,000 before you even get started, especially with all the mobile testing. Apple is not so bad because there's one version out at any one time and every phone has it. With Android, it's a different ball of wax. You've got 50 different phones and 45 different flavors of Android, so it's very expensive. You don't need it. Huge growth. Mobile represents 34.5%. Next slide, please. So these are the opportunities for growth. 1 in 4 orders last holiday season were from mobile shoppers. 24% spend more if you offer some sort of a mobile coupon. Guess what the most popular coupon is? What do you think?
Free shipping.
Free shipping, 100%. Free shipping drives everything. People will drop off. If shipping is the #1 reason why somebody will not buy from you. We'll get more into that in detail. 65% open in mobile. They looked at it first there in email marketing. That's where your emails go first. So that means that not only does your website need to be mobile friendly, your email should be that too. Spend a little bit of time creating a mobile responsive email that you send out. Theme Forest has email templates for like $6. Super cheap.
Theme Forest?
Theme Forest, yep.
THEME, theme for.
Yep, sure do. 51% have used a mobile to purchase. I just bought a golf club, while I was downstairs waiting to come in here. I'm sure everybody shops online, right? For the most part, tablet purchases. Next slide, please. Where retailers are with mobile, 75% of people say they will not go back to a store that's not mobile responsive. I was trying to get some information on web development information last week, and I came to a site that didn't look, I couldn't find the information I was looking for. It was too difficult, so I split and went somewhere else. Image pictures, 8 out of 10 of customers would stop engaging with content that doesn't display well on a mobile device. 51% of retailers surveyed already had mobile or were working on implementing one in 2018. It's got to be closer to 100%. You absolutely have to have it now. Next slide. This is an example of a mobile navigation system. On the desktop, you have your full navigation where everybody can see it, and then depending on the size of the screen, different information gets stacked on top of each other. Who knows what those 3 lines are on a smartphone when you go to a website?
Hamburger menu.
Hamburger menu, that is correct. Why do they call it a hamburger menu?
3 layers.
It's 3 layers, yeah, that's correct. So that's pretty much the standard now. They did a study, I think Moz actually did the study, MOZ, that if you have a mobile menu that is top down versus a side drawer, that the conversion rate on a top down menu is 25% higher than a menu that comes out from the side. I'm not sure exactly why, but those were the stats on that.
Can you explain conversion rate? Some people might not know what you're referring to.
A conversion is the amount of people that visit your website versus buying from it. So you divide the number of purchases divided by the visitors to your site, and you get a metric there. Next slide, please. Here's an example of this is a bad mobile look, and this is a good one.
It's built on, now it seems to be completely built on scrolling, right? Like just thumb flicks.
100%. 5 years ago or so, there was a thought that people don't like to scroll, but that's not true at all. What they want is they want to be able to read and see the content that they're looking for and have it stacked in a single column layout with the images the correct size and the text the right size. It's just so much easier to view that way. Next slide. Here's an example again, a regular site that loads and a mobile responsive top-down menu. A lot of the activity sites that I do all have a call us feature now so that people can get in direct contact with you. So you don't have to go to a contact form and fill it out or look for the phone number. They usually have the button right on the top, and you can click on it and directly call somebody. They do that really well now with text messaging as well. Ecommerce Trends, 2017 to 18. Next slide. Yeah, most visitors arrive there, and we went over this a little bit. Most visitors arrive from a mobile-friendly website. Makes e-commerce easier. Next slide, please. Different digital payment methods. Now, it's even more important now that you have multiple ways that people pay. I had an e-commerce store 5 years ago that sold Hawaiian shirts, and I did a test with just using PayPal as a payment method, and then I did a test with PayPal, or I did a test with Visa just by itself, credit card processing, and then I did a combination of the two, and the combination worked way better. Having PayPal only, some people don't like it. I don't have an issue. Do you have PayPal? Yeah, I don't have an issue with it, but some people do. So having multiple ways that a person can make a payment is very important now.
What's the, what are people doing with Google Payments or Google Checkout? Or is there anybody that's competing right now with PayPal that's gaining any market share, or is PayPal really still?
PayPal is the market leader, and Android is Google Pay is good, and Apple Pay is awesome too. Amazon Payments is coming up. They're doing much better. They're actually opening a checking account functionality. They're working on that now.
PayPal still does very well in Japan.
Does it?
Yeah.
Are there any services that you could use that will help aggregate those payment channels?
You mean as like a PayPal doesn't do that. PayPal Pro has it's an integration where they have both, but it's still a two-step process though. You can't do them independently. If you want to make a payment through PayPal, you have to go into their PayPal and log in directly to it. You can't fill out a credit card and have it process a PayPal payment. I know it kind of seems strange that it would work that way, but PayPal is based on your email, not the credit card. It's an account-based system, not an email or a payment processing.
What's the trend then right now for a website, standard website, to just accept payments through Shopify?
Sure. There's two big ones, PayPal Pro, and the one that's come up in the past 18 months or so is Stripe. Stripe is huge, and Stripe was actually created by the guys that did PayPal.
What about Square?
So Square's okay, it's got a small market share. I just did something for somebody with that. It's not much traction to it, but Stripe is really, really good, and it's super easy to get set up. The requirements for setting up a merchant account can be difficult. For Square, it's very simple and straightforward.
For Stripe?
Stripe, yep.
Do you have any idea what the transaction fees are for those right now? I know PayPal Pro is $20 a month or something like that.
They're all very similar now. PayPal Pro, I think, is $29 a month, 1.8 and a 30-cent transaction, I believe. I think they're all pretty much the same. Next slide. Half of all consumers stated they would gladly switch brands if they had a coupon. Yeah, there's absolutely no loyalty across products where you purchase them except for Amazon. That's the only one that has a lot of repeat business there that has nothing to do with pricing. I just, like I said, I just bought a golf club. I didn't even shop pricing around. It's so easy to get it. The shipping is free. I just have it delivered. But if I'm looking for something specific, the second place I look is I go to all the coupon sites, right? If I'm buying something for any of my clients, I go and try to find a discount code somewhere. And wherever that discount code is from, that's who I'm going to buy it from. And like we said earlier, free shipping is the #1 coupon people are looking for.
What's an example, like Retail Me Not, one of those coupon
Retail Me
sites?
Not is a good one. That's the biggest one. That's the one I use a lot. They have the highest percentage of coupons that actually work there.
How do they work? Do we list a coupon with their site?
You can.
Or they just,
No, I believe you can as it's like paid advertising.
Yeah.
So it's no different than running a banner ad on Google Ads. What you're doing is you're paying them for a distribution of whatever your coupon is. So the key with any of that type of online advertising is your offer has to be awesome. If you have like a discount of a 5% coupon, no one's gonna care. If you do something like 50%, 60% free shipping, something that you as a consumer would appreciate, then a coupon is a great way to get people in your door. Free trials work really well. Get the first month for free, especially on a subscription. That works awesome. Next slide. This is pretty new on the fact that now it's starting to work. Before it used to be you didn't want somebody bothering you when you're on a website. You wanted to be left alone so you could find the information that you wanted. It's not like that now. People will actually engage with a real person on the other end of a chat bot. The worst thing you can do is have one that's automated and there's nobody there to answer it. Don't do that. There's a website that a service that does a couple of different things. It does your analytics. It does the chat where you can communicate with somebody directly on a specific page of your website, and then they also have automations where if you're on a page, you can direct them to additional content based on what their action is on the page. And that product's called Go Squared. It's, I think it's $100 a month, but it includes all of that functionality and directly integrates with your website. I've been using it for almost 2 years now. It's fantastic. And they just implemented the chat box functionality about a year ago or so. Works really, really well.
Do you need to be sitting in front of your computer as the client yourself, or do you receive that on your mobile device? Do you interact with
It does all of it. So it'll send you an email when there's somebody that responds to you. It'll do desktop notifications. So if you're working at your computer and doing something else, it'll pop up and say, hey, there's somebody here who wants to chat with you. Yeah, it works really, really well. It's awesome. The automated, you've read this particular article or you've looked at this page for this long, would you be interested in looking at this as well? That works really, really well. The conversion rates on that is fantastic. Yes, sir.
I used to work in Japan, and this is not about chat boxes, but customer service.
Sure.
And I used to sell enterprise voice for the U.S. to get questions
Yes.
answered. In Japan, they just it's not on the phone. They just want to talk to a real person. So you have to be very careful with automation.
100%, especially like I said at the beginning, if and I've had this where I've responded to a chat window, hey, can I help you? And then you sit there waiting and there's nobody there. So that service Go Square I was talking about has where you can program what your response rate normally is so that people understand what kind of response rate they're going to get.
What is the name of that again?
Go Squared, one word. Yep, Go Squared. It's $100 a month and you have 10 different websites you can hook it up to. So it's a pretty good deal. If you have multiple websites, pretty awesome.
I have to admit that I actually like chatting with support more than calling people. I feel like when I have to call support, my blood pressure goes up. But with chat,
100%.
something about chat makes me feel a little more, and I find the answers are better. I don't know.
They can be.
depends.
In some of the technical things that I do, sometimes it's a little easier to talk to somebody on a phone, which is why a lot of my clients kind of stick with me for a little bit, because sometimes technical things are better that way. But for instant responses, doing a chat is fantastic.
How do you add chat box for non-technical guy?
Oh, it depends on what kind of website you have. If, say you're on a WordPress website or Shopify, you just install a plugin. That's all you got to do and set it up. If
I could have a web developer add it on there or something?
5 minutes, won't take any time at all. And if you don't want to use the Go Squared, there's a ton of different products that do the same thing. Just make sure that it has the away functionality and the notification part of it.
Remember, this is a seminar on exporters, right, or for exporters. So if you are going to have a chat box with somebody who's going to contact you from Korea, you need to have somebody who can chat with them in Korean, right? I mean, that's not that easy to set up. I mean, the technology is easy, but having somebody who can actually respond in everyday Korean, that's a little harder to set up, right? And make sure they're there and available to chat, or Japanese, or Portuguese, or whatever.
Does your Go Square have a translate function?
It does. So you can have multiple languages in there as well. That is correct. So especially for the automation part of it, that would be very important to do that. That could help you out a lot. Yep. Next slide, please. This is the #1 sticking point when I'm doing web development. It's not the text content from the client, the about me, what their product does, what it is. It's the photography. Having or spending the time to either have it professionally done or even using your iPhone is fine. There's nothing wrong with that at all. But it's just a matter of making sure you got the correct lighting for it and having custom photography. Make sure it's not generic. Make it so that it expresses what your point of view is and what you're trying to get across. I should have added this to the slide, but I saw an ad on Facebook for it, and I'll send it to him later this afternoon. It's a little box you can buy. I think it was $99. And what it does is it does light diffusion. So if you stick your product in the middle of it, it handles all the lighting for you. It's like $100. It's awesome. So that when you're trying to cut an image out, you don't have to worry about jagged edges, and the photography looks really nice. The lighting is perfect. I think it's called a light box. I think that's what it was called.
I think it is.
Yeah. It's really
Also,
good.
I would highlight, make sure you're using your own photos, or you bought the photo, you have the copyright license to use the photo. Just don't take some random photo off somebody else's website or do a Google image search and say, oh, that looks good, I'll take that and put it on my website. Make sure you have the right to use the photos you put on your website, please.
You might not know this, but if you do a Google search, and if you go to the Tools dropdown, you can actually select your usage rights. And you can select free for commercial use, and you can use it for free. And you won't get in trouble for it. You just have to make sure you select it. But if you don't, then, like he was saying, they can. I had a client, one of the big photography agencies said that one of my client sites was using one of their images and I had to take it off. So.
Sorry, we just got a question coming in from the Big Island. The chat function is embedded in the web builder at GoDaddy.com. Do you have any experience with that kind of chat function at GoDaddy, or I assume it's a similar service?
It doesn't matter where it comes from for the most part. It's a matter of whether it has the notification part of it. I'm not sure if the GoDaddy builder version does or not. That's going to be the key.
So notification would tell the user, whoever's running the website, that somebody has a question.
That is correct.
And what if you're a one-man show or a one-woman show and you're running a business and somebody...
The Go Squared one will send you an email on your phone, and there's an app you can directly talk to them when you're at the restaurant. You don't need to be in front of a computer in order to do it. I'm a one-man shop, and that's how I work with it.
Not while you're driving?
Not while I'm driving, though, no.
Thank you.
Free shipping is king. Talked about this a little bit. Abandon the cart after seeing the shopping carts. 58% of people do that. Depending on the two biggest shopping carts out right now are Woocommerce and Shopify. They both now have abandoned shopping cart functionality. Implementing that is the single best thing you can do to your shopping cart if you have one that's already existing. Shopify's one is awesome that you can actually set up like a drip campaign, which means you get emails in a sequential order. So 2 days later, you'll get one saying, hey, you left your shopping cart back here. Are you sure you don't want to purchase that? We've only got 6 left in stock, whatever that is. And then 2 days later after that, you can offer them a discount of 10% or 15%.
Let's stay on this topic for a minute because this is something that's very important for exporters. If you're sending something, as you all know very, very well, if you're sending something from Honolulu or from Kihei or from Kapa and you're sending it to Tokyo, right? It's not cheap. Everybody knows that, right? In fact, it could be egregiously expensive if you're shipping 1 versus shipping 10 versus shipping 100 or a pallet by ocean, right? And so this is a topic we really have to spend some time on here because I think our smaller companies in Hawaii, we need to get to the point where we can stock products in the target market and then ship from that inventory. And that's the way we can include free shipping. But if you were to say, let's say somebody from Japan orders a nice box of chocolate from one of our great manufacturers here, maybe a $25 box of chocolate suddenly becomes a $65 box of chocolate once shipping is added.
Correct.
Right? And so what we need to be able to do somehow is get more of that chocolate to Japan so that a consumer, a customer in Japan orders it and free shipping can be offered there. From here, there's simply no way to have free shipping involved, right?
From what I've seen, and I do this all the time when I'm on, for instance, Amazon. I'll wait longer to get cheaper and or discounted and or free shipping. I'll also buy more of the product I might need and get the free shipping or a discount that way.
So many companies will have a minimum order of, say, $50 or $100 in order
or
to
a dollar amount, sure.
trigger the free shipping.
Sure.
Right? How do you see, how does that policy work versus just having purely free shipping? Because I admit, when I see free shipping, I think, oh, okay, I like that. That's a much easier press of the buy button for me when I see free shipping like
It's
that.
a funny thing. They'll pay more money if it includes free shipping. I do it all the time. If I see the shipping cost directly after I add the item in my basket, and I don't research the cost of the item, if I see free shipping, I think it's a deal. We live in Hawaii, right?
Yeah, that's really interesting consumer behavior, in my opinion, that people will pay more if free shipping is the bottom line, right? I see that behavior in myself, even though it's irrational.
Totally.
I still like it.
And the other one that's kind of irrational too is how long you wait for it. I'll wait 2 weeks for something to come in if I didn't have to pay for shipping. I don't care, because I know I got a deal on it.
Does HighStep as an organization have any best practices on shipping?
Okay, HighStep is not really an organization. It's just a plan from DBET on the Hawaii State Trade Expansion Program. Yeah, so for the Hawaii Pacific Export Council, who on our board is a person from UPS. And so I often point people to him to start a relationship with UPS. Of course, it depends on where you're trying to ship too. You could use a freight forwarder such as BNX downtown. They're very good. There's FedEx. And then if you're Japan specific, there's Sagawa. And Yamato Transport is the Kuroneko, the black cat. So there's plenty of options like that. And then certainly in my own business a lot, we use flat rate USPS, the post office flat rate boxes to Japan or other countries. And you know, we figure out you can fit 40 units in a medium flat rate box versus 75 units in a large box, and then you have to, you know, it's going to be $86 to ship that large box to Japan. It's flat rate. So whether it's a box of lead or a box of feathers, it's still $86, right? The weight doesn't matter, right? So there's lots of different options, but as in previous seminars, especially our logistics specific seminars, you should go back to the YouTube channel and look at logistics, because it's pretty clear that you need to establish a relationship with these various shipping companies. And I recommend that you call UPS and you meet with one of their account managers, for example, take your product and show them the packaging and say, okay, what does it cost for me to ship one of these to my target market? Now, what would it cost if I ship 10 or 1,000, right? And then go to BNX downtown and say, actually, I want to ship 4,000 of them on a pallet. What would that cost by ocean?
I mean, from an e-commerce standpoint, I think everything is going to be, for the most part, from an e-commerce standpoint, that's mostly a one-off for most people in e-commerce. So.
Well, at the very beginning, I think, but I'm so convinced that we got to start pushing our companies here to get some inventory in the target market, because the shipping cost per unit from Hawaii to Japan, for example, is just too high. So unless you have an extremely premium product, like let's say your product is $1,000 for one really nice piece of jewelry, and you ship it to Japan and it costs, I don't know, $40 to ship it. So $1,040 versus $1,000, it's not that big of an impact on the price. But going back to the $25 box of chocolate, if you add $40 onto that, and it's a $65 box of chocolate, the price elasticity there between the shipping and the cost, I think, is just way too extreme, right?
I think what happens when you start to talk about having stock overseas is then you have to have the conversation, do I manufacture overseas? That's
sure.
not a conversation we necessarily want to have in this forum.
Sure.
Yeah, so.
Along those same lines, that's why Amazon FBA is so popular. So I've been in a few of those meetings where we have people that export from China or Japan, and in order for it to come here, it's got to go to California first, right? And then it comes here, and then you ship it from here to wherever it's got to go, which seems, I mean, it just makes everything so much more expensive. So with the FBA fulfillment by Amazon, you just ship it one time, and a lot of the people that do that don't even see the product anymore. They ship it just direct. So it goes California, goes straight there and never stops here. Or goes from China straight to the facilitator in California or the Midwest, wherever it's at.
There's some companies here too that are using a fulfillment service to ship internationally, but that fulfillment service is based in Philadelphia, and so they have to stock the product in Philadelphia, and it goes. Companies I'm thinking of are fairly light products that can fit in an envelope, and it'll ship from Philadelphia to Japan for $13 in an envelope, right? But of course they had to stock the product in Philadelphia. So that's where I go back to saying, if you're gonna stock it in Philadelphia, just stock it in Tokyo and have somebody fulfill it from there. And then you can offer the free shipping, that's all.
If you're shipping with FedEx, make sure you spend the time and create a business account with them, because their wholesale rates are 40% less than the retail. And a customer is by default going to know what the retail rates are because they're just comfortable with it. And it's not necessarily to make money with it, but it's just a way for you to discount it and show your customers value maybe. One of the websites I'm doing now, it's exactly that way. It's their retail it's because they ship so much, it's like 50% less than what the retail rate is.
Yeah, when you get to the point where you can have a conversation with FedEx or UPS or any of them, and you can show them that my monthly shipments are approximately this amount, you can negotiate much better rates with them than just showing up once in a while and saying, I need to ship this thing to Japan, and maybe you'll see me in 6 months or something. Then you're paying sort of the flat rate, right?
USPS is by far the cheapest. But you know, they're gonna have to wait a little while for it, right?
I have a question about, so do you have any information on the return shipping? So like, say you included the shipping, like you were able,
Yeah.
bicycles, so free shipping is kind of a tough one for that. But if we included it in the price and then charged like a restocking fee or some kind of fee afterward, like just because if they want to return it or something happens, we're then gonna eat like 150.
Yeah,
any information on that?
Yeah, I do. The hardest part with that is understanding why the person wants to return it first. So if it's an error with something's broken or it's not exactly what they want and they just want their money back, that's one situation. But if it's the wrong size or the color, and I guess what I'm saying is an exchange versus a refund is different. An exchange, if they return it, you're going to take a loss on it. But what you don't want to do is create a bad relationship with them when they send it back to you. If you start adding restocking fees, it just puts a bad taste in people's mouth. It's not a good thing to do, but if it happens a lot, it can be a huge cost to your business. You got to take it on a case-by-case basis. How expensive are your products? Are they under $20, $100, $500?
Yeah, they're pretty expensive.
Oh, no, wrong end. Cost effective. Very cost effective.
It makes it easier if you have a margin to work with, for sure.
In your case, though, I think you probably want an agent, a local somebody who can try to deal with it on the front line first, rather than just saying somebody's going to ship a whole bike frame back to you guys, because they will probably, the customer will incur at least a couple $100 shipping it, because they probably don't have the relationship with the shipping company that you have to get the return rate that's as good as the one you got to send it to them. So they could probably spend $300 or $400, right?
The real key to that is making sure that the notification is right there in front of them so they see it, especially on like the order receipt that they get. The worst thing that could happen is your fine print is so fine that they don't see it and they think you're trying to
trick them in some way. So if your disclaimers and your privacy notices say exactly that, especially your shipping notices, are very important to have that there. Easy to read and easy to understand.
Any more questions before we move on?
With the palette recommendation that you made, are you saying that maybe Amazon might have a fulfillment center in Japan or in
They do.
Canada?
Oh, not maybe, definitely, they do.
So it's something you can partner with.
Sure. Or there's others. You could just work with a local warehouse or an independent fulfillment service, right? And you don't have to use Amazon.com. I have a slide. If we have time, I'll show you this slide I have from the U.S. Commercial Service. Has an e-commerce lab in Washington, D.C. that they've developed some best practices. And there's a really interesting slide where they show you sort of Amazon versus going it alone and the amount of control you give up versus ease and what have you. Remind me later. If we don't have time, I'll just give it to you.
Gary, we've been thinking about doing tiered pricing. Certain amount, you get 50% off.
Sure.
Certain amount. Do you see any traction? Or
Yeah, any kind of, are you doing a subscription or is it a one-off?
no one-off?
Tiered pricing works depending on what the product is, especially on a consumable. It's really popular because they know they're going to keep using the same product over and over again. That's a good deal. So for example, if I buy, well, for me as a business owner, if I'm buying business cards, then if they're going to give me 50% more for 50% less, of course I'll take it. And I just bought some business cards doing that exact same thing. I got one magnetic door for one of my clients, and I got the second one for 50% off. That's usually good on the, don't do it up front, but as a continuation. So that's, what you're saying there is actually called a sales funnel, just like what McDonald's does, where you go and you buy a burger, but then they try to upsell you the fries and the Coke, and they actually make more money on the fries and the Coke than they do on the burger. So being up, what is the product?
Well, you're going down a different path.
I understand.
I'm sorry to clarify. I meant about on shipping. Do you see anybody out there? Is there any traction with the market? You hit a certain. So right now our free shipping is based on a couple $100.
Sure.
So we were thinking, okay, what if we cut that in half? Offer maybe tiered shipping rates.
I think I can answer this because we do this a lot to Asia, particularly Japan from Hawaii. The flat rate boxes are in some ways a blessing, right? Because as much as you can safely fit into that flat rate box without damaging the product is, let's just say the more the better, obviously, right? So you have to know those dimensions and how your product fits into that flat rate box. And if you can get customers to order enough product from you to fill that flat rate box, it's better for you because the flat rate means, let's just say Japan, the large box is $86, right? So if you have $20 of product inside that versus $200 of product in that flat rate shipping, that's all the more better for you. And it's better for them too, right? So I think your tiered shipping really comes part and parcel with fully understanding the dimensions of that flat rate box, right? There's really two that you would use, I think, in your business. You'd either use the medium or the large, right? And the large isn't really that much bigger than the medium, but it works out.
Yeah, we're using that for domestic, but we have to kind of explore the international scale.
I don't have, I should have brought an example with me of that flat rate box, but it's the same. It's the same size as domestic, but they've worked it out internationally so that it's basically the same. You get the same box from Yamato or anybody else, that the dimensions of that box. And I think if you can figure out how much tea can I fit in that flat rate box and build your pricing for the products around getting that box as full as possible to ship it to the customer, then it's all the better for both sides of the equation. Right?
What shopping cart are you using?
I don't want to say it. I thought we were number 2. Now I guess we're even lower than that. So I'm on BigCommerce.
Oh, they're good. Yeah. Do they have the functionality in order to do to keep track of the sizing and fit you in the right box? Do they have that?
We haven't really explored that, especially on the international side. But we have been doing pretty well with the flat rate boxes.
Got it.
But I still think that, it was just a matter of seeing if we can get that 58% abandoned cart down,
Sure.
you know.
That is one of the challenges with using. There's two different ways to do a shopping cart or a website, right? There's service-based, and there's also doing where you have your own, right? And you have your own custom code that you can do. So BigCommerce is one of them. Who's another? Shopify is the other one. You don't have any control. You can't do custom things like that. So you're at their mercy whether you can add that functionality. But I think they got that, don't they? I would think they would.
I'm sure they do, but I think the way we set up our cart is not by weight, it's by,
Dimension, width, height.
yeah, it's really SKU-based versus, they want you to add, when you enter a product, they want all that detail. And we
Sure.
can't get away from that.
Yeah. Oh, okay, I understand.
The weight, dim.
Sure.
all that.
And it's the weight and the size of it as relation to the box that it's going in. That is correct. You
Just
got-
long story short, it was, our competitors, let's say on the continental US, at such a much lower price point, they're offering free shipping.
Got it.
And we just started figuring out how to compete against that.
Understand. So for example, Woocommerce, when you set up the shipping for that, you do the same detail work, but then you can even pick the type of shipping boxes and sizes that that particular product is related to. So in your example, if they were doing the flat rate box of a certain dimension, it'll automatically do the math to figure out how many of those will go in there, and then you can give a customer a discount if it'll fit another one in there.
I think you really have to invest some time to understand those boxes inside and out. Question before we move on?
Okay. So just a recap of what we just went over. Speed of delivery is a fourth most important factor. 93% take action for free shipping, and 83% of shoppers will wait 2 or more days to get it. Just a recap of what we already went over.
What if a customer, a buyer knows they can get a product within 48 hours versus a week or 2 weeks? Do you have any data for how would that make them more likely to pull the trigger on a purchase? I mean, it's sort of common sense if they can get it sooner, but I'm just wondering if there's any data on that.
It's not necessarily how quick they can get it. For the most, they'll pay anything if they need it tomorrow. If it's an urgent need, they don't care what it is. But if they can get a discount of some sort, they'll wait. Here's an issue that happens with a lot of my clients. Is this last one? 50% of shoppers abandon carts. They didn't get an estimate on delivery. So I'm working on a site now where they're dealing with perishable items. So because that the item is perishable, if they want to get FedEx on Monday, they can't because there's no delivery on Saturday, depending on what part of the country they're in. So there's 1-day zones and 2-day zones, right? So maybe that's the same thing in Japan.
Sure.
So you have to figure out which product they can buy, what the expiration is on the perishable, and when the ship date and receive date is going to be, plus the manufacturing date. That's a part of the problem that they're having as well. So they get the order, they have to schedule when to make it, and then they have to schedule when to ship it, and then they have to know when the customer is going to get it, so the product is still good. So what we're doing is we're going to implement, the first thing they do is put their zip code in. They get their shipping delivery dates and costs right off the bat. So there's no confusion on that. We can go on. One of the interesting trends now in e-commerce development is features versus function. Even though Target is one of the larger e-commerce sites out there, it's just way too busy. Try not to bombard them with 85 million different things on one page. Even on the desktop, it's just way too cluttered. Keep it simple. Make sure your images are large. Make sure the information they're looking for is easily accessible. I mean, it's a very large site, but the banner is just too much. You should be careful of that. Again, information overload, this particular website that I saw, it's okay to have this info, but sometimes it can be just too much information if you're showing different sizes of the item. Maybe you don't need that. Try to keep it as simple as possible. Big images are very important, especially on the detail page. Calls to action. This can be kind of overkill as well, but in this particular case, because they have specifically 3 different ways to buy their razors, that a call to action for each one of them works perfect. And it takes you right down the path for that particular item, and you're going to get exactly what that drop down says it's going to have. It takes you directly to the shopping cart so you can make a purchase. This is one of my favorite sites. This one works really, really well.
I've used that site before. It does work really well.
Yeah, it's beautiful. Super simple. And it's kind of interesting that they include the hamburger menu along with the top menu navigation. They have both there. It's just a really, really well put together site.
But this whole company is based on e-commerce, right?
That is correct.
There's no brick and mortar store where you can go buy razor blades.
I remember when they started, I thought it was funny. I was like, there's no way that's going to get any traction, right? But what do I know on some of this stuff? Yeah, they've done really, really well.
This is a Dollar Shave Club, by the way.
Yep, next slide. So now we come to the marketing side, and is this really, I guess it's kind of relevant to this, but it's,
Sure.
So the next set of slides is all about internet marketing, how to get people to find your product or service. And for the most of these slides coming up, I'm going to use myself as an example. Like I said at the beginning, I just started this in 2015. And with how competitive my industry is, for me to get in front of the people that I needed to see what I can do, there's some very specific things that I had to do with a very low budget in order to get eyeballs to my website. So that's what we're going to talk about: social media, email marketing, SEO, and content marketing.
I think the key point of all of this is that it's very much tied in to the website and the e-commerce. It's all sort of baked into the same recipe, as is logistics after the fact, shipping the product. I don't think you can untangle them anymore. It used to be where you could have marketing here and the e-commerce site here and the shipping over here, but now they're also mixed in and blended, right? Let's keep that in mind.
That's a good point. I have clients call me all the time and they say, what is the one thing that I should do in marketing? And there is no one thing. You absolutely have to do a blended version of marketing across a bunch of different platforms in order for you to get to where you need to go. When I started my business, the first thing I had to do was paid advertising because I was getting no organic traffic. So I started with Yelp. And for me, Yelp worked really, really well. Once I found out that Yelp could work for a competitor, the second thing that I did is I went and researched in the mainland who were the biggest web development companies there and what did their Yelp page look like? What content did they have on there that allowed them to get where they were going? And I mimicked it. So there's a bunch of different things that you can do right off the bat. Standard internet marketing, extremely necessary when launching a new product, new service, or new product offering. So there's paid advertising, Facebook ads, Google AdWords, you could pay Yelp. But it's also knowing that if you're not doing traditional search engine optimization, that your ROI is never going to work out.
Can you spend a minute and review for everybody what is search engine optimization?
Sure.
At the very basic level.
Sure. Search engine optimization, I guess the easiest way to say it is what you're trying to do is get listed on the first page of Google. for whatever particular keyword your product is related to. So for example, if my company is doing website development and design, so the main keywords are website design, but that is super competitive. So what I had to do is I had to research what are other ways that people are searching for the same types of words in different, in a different order. Like instead of website design, I looked up design websites, and I did marketing for that particular keyword in order to get traction. So I guess to even simplify it more, all you're trying to do is get listed on two different things. The first page organic listings, that's number one, and number two is getting listed in that top map section on Google. The top map section now is super simple. I can have it listed, your company listed in that area for a particular keyword in under 30 days. To get organic listings, it took me 6 months before I got my first lead on organic. It took a while. So there are two parts to SEO. There's on page, and I think the next slide might have that, what that is. There's two different parts to that. There's on page, which is content, and then there's off page, which is are other people, other websites talking about your website that Google has seen. So those are two basic components to it. And depending on your keywords, it can take up to a year to get ranked, depending on what it is, if it's super competitive. But again, if it's not, if it's very specific, I can get you listed in a week. If it's exactly what you do, it can be very quick.
But it's up to the company then. I mean, you could work with the company as a consultant, but they really need to know what are their keywords, right? And that would come from what? The mission statement, the key marketing
Sure.
words. I mean, let's take. Okay, these guys are really easy. The bamboo bicycles, right? I mean, that's pretty specific. But there's more. Like, how about tea? You know, tea is pretty general. So
Very general.
How could you focus in on tea?
So for me, when I started, and for a lot of my companies, the easiest way to do it is your domain name doesn't need to match what your name of your company is. Your domain name should say what you do and where you do it, or what your product is and where you do it, or what your product is and where you're trying to sell it to. So if you're trying to market to Japan and you have bamboo bicycles, having a domain name that says Bamboo Bicycle Japan is going to be a huge advantage on search engine optimization. You're going to get a major boost from Google just because your domain name matches what your product is in the area that people are searching for it.
That's a really good point that I think a lot of people don't fully grasp, right?
Yeah.
They try to get the company name and the top level domain to be exactly the same. I'm sort of guilty of that myself, but
Yeah. Yes.
Have anything to do with web traffic to your site that then leads to a higher ranking at all, or not really?
Traffic, not necessarily. There's a key component to search engine optimization that's called your domain authority. So what that means is if your domain authority is a 3, and there are 5 or 6 different sites that are 6, 7, or 8 that have your content on it or are talking about you, then Google will see that you are now similar to that, and then you'll get a boost.
what about if they bought, I'm sorry to pick on you guys, but what if they bought bamboobikesjapan.com,
Yeah.
.jp, but then as soon as a user clicked on that link from Google, it was
Can't do
redirected
it.
to their main site?
That doesn't work anymore.
Doesn't
You can't
work.
do it. The domain has to, here's how it's supposed to work. Your domain name, your first H1 tag, which is the great big banner on your website, whatever the biggest text is you have on your website, and then some content lower in your page, and if they're all related to all the same thing, then that's gold. You had a question? Yes.
So for SEO, is SEO a science or is SEO a prescription?
That's a good question. It's a little bit of both, and I'll be honest with you. There's a joke that if I'm in the woods with a friend, if I'm in the woods with a friend and a bear pops out, I don't need to outrun the bear. I got to outrun the friend, right? So that's how SEO works. So the first thing you got to do is analyze your product, your content, and your keyword, and find out how much traffic that keyword is getting. You can do that on the Google Keyword Planner. It'll tell you exactly what the search volume is. It'll tell you all of that. Once you have that information, then you need to research who your competitors are, and you can pull a report to see what they're doing and what their domain authority is. And all you got to do is do a little bit more than them. How I climbed to number, I think I'm like 2 or 3 now on Yelp for Webmaster Services Hawaii, is the keywords I picked, the name of my domain, and the content I have all talk about exactly that. And every listing place all uses basically the same thing. If they're all in relation to each other, it'll all work out. So is it science? Can I guarantee that you'll be on the first page in 30 days? No, I can't do it. Can I say you're going to be there in 6 months? I can say there's going to be progress for sure, but there is no guarantee on that, depending on your keyword. Now, on the flip side of that, the worst day of the month for me is the first day when I'm doing reporting for my SEO clients, and in the previous 30 days there has been no movement at all. So Google did an algorithm change of some sort. Their website is broken for some reason. Their robotic text file is not getting read for whatever reason. That's a bad day. So do I want that to ever happen? No, not at all. It happens very rarely.
One other question about the domains.
Yeah.
I think we own Bamboo Bikes Hawaii and Bamboo Bikes HI.
Okay.
So, does it need to say Hawaii? It's spelled out in the domain?
For me, it did. I wanted to go to the lowest common denominator and get the most traction, the most bang for my buck. That's what I was trying to do with me. That makes it easier. If somebody is looking for, if you do the research and people are searching for Bamboo Bikes HI, then you should be that. But if a higher keyword traction ranking is or search volume is for that, then go with what works. This has happened with a few of my clients where they go domain shopping happy and they buy a bunch of different domains that are all similar. Before, what you could do is you could throw up a simple landing page with the different domains like you were talking about earlier and have people land on it and get redirected somewhere else. You don't want to do that anymore. You want to make your site as rock solid for what you're doing as possible. Another example is my thought was to create another website for me on Maui. So instead of having Webmaster Services Hawaii, I'd have a Webmaster Services Hawaii and a Webmaster Services Kauai and a Webmaster Services Big Island. It's not going to work because the main authority is with the content I have for me on Webmaster Services Hawaii. So what I did is just create subpages with different content that specifically talks about addressing the Maui market. So
In a drop-down menu?
yeah, it doesn't even need to be listed, to be honest with you. It's convenient if it is. For me, I don't list it because no one's going to click on it, right? They're not going to see what my other locations are. So I have a page that's not even a part of my main navigation. It's just Webmaster Services Maui. And all of the content on that page talks specifically about the companies that I've done on Maui, I've done web development work for.
Sorry, the neighbor islands are asking that we ask the questions more loudly, or can you repeat the question?
I can do
because
that.
they can't hear it in these microphones.
So, with one of our websites, actually we have multiple sites that
Yep.
have different specific content, but we're now gonna consolidate those websites.
Mm-hmm.
Point all those domains to the main website domain now.
Okay.
It sounds similar to what you're talking about, but
Yep.
Is that the right kind of strategy, or?
Every case is different, so it's hard for me to say up here without taking a look at it. That's a better strategy going forward, is doing that. But if the products are standalone and they're specific, having them as separate is fine. There's nothing wrong with it. But what you're saying is, like, if I have one of my clients they do medical testing, and they only have one website for all of their different products. They just do a really good job of fleshing out the content for each one of them. You have good content?
Yeah, a lot
Yeah. Then pull them all together, but make sure that when you do that, that you have the 301 redirects in place. So if somebody's looking for a specific page on one of the external websites, that they don't get a 404, because Google is gonna severely ding you for that. Make sure the redirects are in place before you do anything. So leave them up, put the redirects in, and then a month or two later, then you can pull them down. It's a better way to do it. Yes, sir.
Yeah, Gary, you were talking about sliders before, but I heard that they're not so good for SEO.
Sliders?
Yeah. Can you elaborate on that?
Sure. Okay, so the question is, do I recommend having sliders on a website anymore? I'll be honest with you, I don't. They're very, very heavy. And to be honest with you, most people don't get past slide 2.
So what were you saying before the very beginning? You said something about sliders?
I'm at, scrolling.
Yeah, I know scrolling was there, but you said slider.
Yeah, sliders are, that's correct. The thing at the,
The top.
yeah, correct. I don't,
Get rid of them.
I don't recommend them at all anymore. They should be very pointed and point blank as to what message you're trying to get across to somebody. If your message is, I'm the best bamboo bike in Hawaii, or the best bamboo bike ever made, period, that should be the only message there. And H1 tag is what you were talking about, probably. So the very first bit of text that you come to on a page, it should be exactly what you do. Very, very important.
I think you guys are so specific, right, that you have a natural advantage when it comes to this, right? Bamboo bikes, Hawaii. I mean, that is really specific. I doubt there's another company here that's like that, you know. So use that as your main website, bamboobikeshawaii.com, and then go from there.
But your keywords could be anything, though.
Yeah.
I mean, it could be exercise in Japan, or it could be eco-friendly bike. It could be anything. The key is to research what those kind of niche-y keywords could be, and if the search volume is there, it's worth it to spend the time and the money to market to it.
Do you know how to find, like, easy ways to find your specific keywords?
Yeah, you type in your biggest competitor's name in the keywords tool on Google. So go find whoever your biggest keyword thing is, your competitor, and stick it in there, and it'll tell you, it'll list every single one of your competitors' websites and what your competitors' keywords and what they're ranked for. And it'll show you the search volume for that keyword.
It'll do it in Japanese too, all the major languages.
Yep, it doesn't cost anything either, it's free. You just have to have an AdWords account, I think. But you just set it up and put your credit card in and don't do anything with it. It doesn't cost you anything. That's the fun part, is finding those diamonds in the rough. I wasn't getting any logo design clients for a while on Yelp until I figured out that if I add the keyword specifically to my description on who I am and what I do, that people will now find me. I didn't know that. I just thought they were going to search for the keywords or the categories that I was implementing. And it's like that with your website too.
Do these keywords cross over, like, hashtags for Instagram and stuff like that?
Yeah, they're different. Yeah. That's just a way for people to find you and talk about a specific subject. It's not for search engine optimization, not necessarily.
Before we leave this slide, we jumped into questions, and I don't think you really made this point yet, that search engine optimization is better over the long term than this strategy.
I think the next slide has the breakdown on what that is. So I said earlier about the client that I'm meeting with tomorrow. He's been paying $800 a month for Google AdWords for the past almost 2 years now. And he was with his accountant and he saw the number and he couldn't believe it. The key when you're doing marketing is both. You need to do, in my opinion, you need to do the search engine optimization, which is a long-term play. And then you need to do paid advertising, which is the short term in order to get as many eyeballs as possible for the least amount of money to your particular product. And the next one is having a good product mix, or an easier way to say that is content. Your content needs to match both. So search engine optimization is where you have an idea on what people are searching for your product and what keywords they're using for that. And it's more of an organic thing. This is very specific when you're doing paid advertising. You guys know what Google AdWords is, right? Google has changed where they used to have the little boxes on the side, but now they're all up the top, the link section, paid advertising. Each keyword that you're trying to target on AdWords needs to be specific to the product or the keyword that that person has typed in. It needs to be that way so that the people are searching for exactly what they want and they get the result or go to the product or service of exactly what they're looking for. So for example, if I'm doing an ad on Google AdWords for search engine optimization, my Google AdWords ad is going to be contact Webmaster Services today for a very special price on search engine optimization, and I send them directly to that search engine optimization page. Don't create an ad on Google that's generic, that tries to encompass everything, and drop them on your homepage. Don't do it. You're just burning money. So it's a three-prong approach. So the long-term play, the paid advertising, and good content is the way to go, and that's what I did. That's what I do for my clients too. The first place you guys should start with search engine optimization, it's $99 for the year. It's called moz.com/local. And what that'll do is it'll check your business name against all of the major citation websites. A citation website are websites like Yelp, Yellow Pages, Nextdoor, Next. There's like 50 of them, I think. And what it does is does a comparison, and it shows you where you're ranking on those, and I'll give you a full list on what you got to do.
Maybe at the end what we'll do is when the presentation's done, we'll bring up a browser and just ask if a volunteer wants to step up, and we'll put in your website.
Yeah, we can do that.
See what happens.
Yeah, for sure.
I'd put in mine, but I'm afraid what the results would be.
Yeah, yes,
Could we also have a list of a lot of the resources that are being made?
we will. I'll put it together for you.
Okay, thank you.
No problem. Yes, sir. moz.com. It's they used to be who I would use for my search engine optimization reporting. I just use them now for the local part of it. For search engine optimization, I use SEMrush is who I'm using now. The reporting is just fantastic.
We'll go over it at the end. Make sure
Yep.
everybody knows what these are.
Okay, next slide, please. So here's how the marketing works. So you do your business assessment on what your company does, what your thoughts are on what people are looking for. You develop a keyword strategy, and then you determine the best tactics. Search engine optimization, pay-per-click, or a blend. And these are the actual steps you do for each side of that. So for search engine optimization, you start with keywords to content, making sure that the keywords are talking about the content on your site. So I'll give you an example of a hotel in Waikiki. So what would you do if you were marketing the Ilikai? The first thing you would say was, I'm a hotel in Waikiki, right? It's pretty simple. What else would you talk about though? What other bits of content would be relevant for Google that are similar to but involve that? What would it be? Excuse me?
Beachfront.
Correct, that's good.
About close to Ala Moana Mall.
That's great. So it's not just what it is or where it is, it's what are the things around it? What are the restaurants around it? What are the bars around it? What is the shopping around it? If you have content that talks not just about the thing, but all of the things around it, Google really likes that now. It's all about content. What is Facebook's #1 job? What are they trying to do with everything they do on Facebook?
Get paid.
That's pretty good.
Take over the world, I thought.
The #1 thing Facebook tries to do is keep you on Facebook. That's the #1 thing. They don't want you going anywhere. They want you to stay there and talk to your friends and all the ads and all, it's all stay there. The #1 thing that Google does is the exact opposite. They want you to go to whatever you're looking for. So when you're talking about keywords and content, when you search for something, Google wants to display exactly what you're talking about or what people are looking for. So you map the content, you optimize your web pages, images, text, content, optimize your internal and external links to make sure that you don't have 15 different ways to get to the same page, but you have one way that really makes sense or two ways that really make sense. And then build an external profile link. This, for me, is where the money's at and where the cost is. When I take a new SEO client on, the first thing I do is run through, when I'm doing the actual work on the site, is run through the on-page, H1 tags, content, keyword distribution. The next part is all of the external link building. Getting you listed on all the directory sites and publishing content in specific places that have high domain authority. Pay-per-click advertising is similar. Map the landing page, the keywords to the specific page that I mentioned, that the ad matches the specific content you're trying to sell. Create the landing page so that it says exactly what it is you do for that particular ad. Develop the ad copy and establish the keyword bid on what you're willing to pay for that. And then you measure the outcome.
And rinse and repeat. The key point is learning from after you measure the outcome, how effective was it, and then change accordingly and start over. Now, this is a seminar specific to exporting. You basically duplicate this for every language you're interested in.
100%. Because the content might be different for a particular destination.
Question.
Yes, sir.
So if you're looking for someone to help you with this, and they are not standing in front of you like today, what are some of the things that we should be asking or speaking to an SEO expert about so that we know that we're talking to someone that can actually help us?
Good question. So the question is how do I find an SEO guy for my particular needs, right? The first thing is they tell you they can get you listed in 30 days, run. Second thing is if it's too cheap and the number sounds too good, that's also bad news. The third thing is is who they've worked with in the past. Call them. So get a list. Like you could call Maui Brewing Company or Turtle Bay for me, or Pronk Technologies, or Dole. I can give you contact information. You can talk to whoever I work with there directly. If the person's not willing to do that, then I would be scared. Just what their past track record is.
In my opinion, the question you asked is real similar to translation, meaning don't go to if you're translating into Japanese, for example, your web content or your marketing literature, don't ask your friend's cousin's auntie who took Japanese 101 in high school to do it. You need a professional, I think. And there's plenty of people who can say, well, I have a nephew and his friend is really good at designing websites, or he built a website for his class project or something. That's not the kind of person you want working on this. I think you really need a professional. And there are professionals out there.
Yeah, I would go even beyond that. When I worked in Asia, we had separate Chinese presentations for Hong Kong, Taiwan, and the People's Republic. They used completely different phrases and words.
Sure.
I was not aware of, and we thought it was all Chinese, but it's not.
No, I've learned that, studying Japanese almost my whole adult life, that there's a lot of Japanese words that are very industry specific too, right? Some industries have adopted English words into their lexicon. Some industries haven't. So you really need a professional, and you need a professional who's familiar enough with that industry that you're working in. Brenda?
This may be a little bit too complicated, and maybe because I'm thinking of China.
Here's the best kind.
Yeah. As one designs their websites, whether they're websites especially for mobile and the rest, and since I do so much work in China, how much does the platform really matter? Because in China China, you have the Great Firewall, and we might have excellent stuff outside of China, but trying to get it into China or Chinese consumers, and likewise, Japan or any other country. I mean, how much does it translate internationally to those platforms?
Well,
That's
basically,
working with exports.
let me repeat the question. It really had to do with about China and how to treat, is China different or not? And I would say everything that Gary set up to this point that had to do with Google, just forget about all of that. And then let's have another conversation, because as you know, Google and China had a bit of a contentious relationship there.
I was there when they got kicked out.
Yeah, so you can't use Gmail, you can't use Google, you can't do searches in Google, none of that. Google calendaring, none of that works, right? So you have to base it, the website has to be very specific to China, and I think you need really a Chinese developer there that can host the website locally on servers that are approved by the government. That's the easiest and safest way to do it. There are people in Hong Kong that can help you, but to my experience, there's really nobody here that can do that very well,
But
that doesn't have a
unique to
partner.
China, I mean, let me take it for HPEC's, overall umbrella. I mean, China, I understand, but is it unique for other countries also, or is it a bit more uniform, let's say?
No, I would say in fact that Google is interesting because their Asia headquarters is still Japan. They haven't moved really to outside. There's a lot in Singapore, but Google is basically everywhere. And the format that we've talked about here, you can get by with the same format, just adapting to the different language and keywords in Japan, Korea, Taiwan, Singapore, Malaysia, Thailand, India, almost everywhere except China and North Korea.
So one final question, let me just wrap it back to China. So would that mean for websites and things in China, I mean, I'm obviously playing devil's advocate here. Is it better to work with, if you want to do Taobao Market or Alibaba or go on to WeChat, Weixin?
Yeah, that I think you need a separate system to just deal with China alone, because they have all kinds of, and they adjust it, quarterly or even more often. They change the rules, and so somebody like Gary or I, we can't keep up with all of those rule changes, whereas a domestic Chinese web provider would know all of that and how to get around issues. It's the same like, in my case, we'd have a separate accountant in China to just deal with Chinese accountancy. It's just so different that it's not worth trying to pay somebody here to figure all of that out, because 3 months later the rules could be pretty different anyway. So just
I would add, it's not like it's hard to sell in China. I did an article once on 10 best-selling Japanese properties in China, and they're quite unusual, they're quite interesting, and really reflects how consumers think. And I think there's a vast market.
Sure.
That you just got to take into account.
Oh, I believe there's a vast market in China. I just think that addressing it from here, from a website developed here, on a server here, it's just not going to go that far. That you really need to have a partner there that develops the website for you and runs social media and all of that stuff. Yes.
So I guess, speaking in with my HPEC chair hat, so I guess what I'm looking for, at least for all the participants, is some uniformity, or whether we put down even the country. So if we develop, our companies develop the products and they're developing their websites and things here, we know at least which countries that would be fairly accepted in and fairly uniform in. I mean, China's its own market, and I understand that.
Yeah.
But I mean, we might want to consider doing something like that, especially, the way Gary has his expertise over this.
It's a good idea. Thank you. I like that. Do
Start developing networks for the different markets.
Any more questions before we move on? Online, no.
So just a summary, just to go over what we kind of went over earlier. Mobile is vital, very important to make sure your website's mobile responsive. It's a key thing. The development trend before was to develop your desktop website and then move down depending on the screen size and show different content. Now actually development has changed. It actually starts with mobile. So to make sure that your message looks good on mobile and then you go the other way, you go the other direction.
Would you suggest to, if your audience, if most of your customers were, say, younger, I don't know what younger is, but say younger than me.
Younger than me now too, yeah.
I could imagine that there's a lot of people in the world now who actually never even get to a desktop, right?
Yeah, a good portion of them for sure.
So you would develop the website, generally speaking, mobilized first, what it looks like here, and then
correct.
go backwards? Is that a...
That's 100% how we work now.
Okay.
It goes that way first. What is the bare minimum content to show somebody so that they can buy what they're looking for in the easiest way? And then as you get up to a desktop, then you show, usually, to be honest with you, more content. For the slider question that came up earlier, 90% of the sites I do for mobile, that's one of the first things to go. Because what's the most important thing when you're looking at a mobile device? It's not necessarily how it looks, but it's how fast it is, right? It's how responsive, not just the size, but responsive to your interactions so you can find what you're looking for. As far as shipping goes, free shipping is king. Coupons are very important too. And lastly, I guess the internet, the numbers are always changing, but now, like I said before, it's a really good time to do it. Your cost investment is lower now than it was before, and the amount of money you can make with it is higher than it was before. And that's my info.
This is how we find Gary. We'll leave this up here, or put it up later.
Thanks, everybody. Appreciate it. Thank you very much.
One of the questions I wanted to ask, maybe we'll just leave it at this slide for a second. What's the state of the art right now? What are people doing when they want to have a multilingual website that's just, let's just stay with Japan, but knowing it could be Portuguese or French or whatever.
So, yeah, the majority of the sites that I've been doing in the past 18 months are WordPress sites. And the shopping cart that I've been using is WooCommerce.
Sorry, let's back up. Everybody understand what is WordPress? Is anybody not? Let's go over that real quickly. WordPress is a CMS, is a content management system, meaning it's a framework that you install that you then input content into the framework, and the framework makes it very easy to display as a website, right? So there's several, WordPress is by far number one, but there's others like Joomla, what's the other one? I can't remember. Drupal, that's it. But WordPress, I think now probably has over 80% of that
Tons,
market.
millions and millions of websites in WordPress.
And generally it's free, and you can establish an account at wordpress.org, or I think they own .com now, but you could put it on your website. So let's say your website is example.com. You would install WordPress into the root directory there, and then you can upload the content, the home page and your posts and your blog and your contact information and all that stuff. It just makes it easier for the average person to use this CMS rather than coding the whole website line by line in HTML, which was probably what you did 15, 20 years ago.
Yes.
So now WordPress and these other content management systems or CMS make it much easier. But what's happened then in the past, 5 years, is that because these content management systems have become so prevalent that experts like Gary, decide, well, okay, now we learn how to tweak the content management system, and that's where the expertise really comes in as to how to get the colors and the shading and the look and feel all comes in the tweaking of the content management system. But the average person, I think, can build a basic website now without a whole lot of work.
You can
right?
get if you download WordPress, you find a hosting company. I use Siteground. They're really good. It used to be Bluehost, but not anymore. And GoDaddy, they're okay. Siteground. You download WordPress for free. It takes 5 minutes, less than 5 minutes to install it. You go buy a theme from Theme Forest for $50, and you can have a website up and running in a day.
That's assuming you want to spend the time doing it and educating yourself. I look at sort of the website and this kind of development work as very similar to being a day trader at home trading stocks, right? That you have to be really up on market information constantly in order to be an effective day trader. And I think it's the same with building websites. Things are moving and constantly changing in that industry, and so you have to be up on that stuff all the time and reading about new WordPress changes and updates to that software and plugins and the way to do this and the way to do that. To me, it feels very similar as to just trading stocks online. Like constantly getting information. It gets to the point where so much of you as a business person, your brain power is going into how do I update the website? Oh, I got to do the plugins today, and I need to do the post by Friday, and all of this stuff. It takes so much time. I just feel like turn it over to a stockbroker that give you advice, or turn it over to somebody like Gary to give you advice on how to keep things constant.
Yeah, I get a call once a week from somebody that's trying to do it themselves and they need help, trying to make it the way they want it to. Because a website's a very personal thing, right? It's your website, it's your baby, right? So,
especially for a small company.
Sure, and what you got to keep in mind when you're doing website development, and I run into this from time to time, is that who are you building the website for? Who is it for? Is it for you? Or is it for the person that's visiting your site? You got to make sure you always put them first. Think about what they would like to see and how they would like to navigate. Ask your friends to go on your site and buy something. Test it. Constantly test it.
I think ask your mother. If your mother can do it, anybody can do it.
Yes, sir.
So if WordPress is day trading, would Shopify or something that be analogous to just buying a mutual fund and forgetting about it? Because you don't have to do everything's done for you, or is that overly?
No, I think that might be a little bit oversimplifying, because it's still with Shopify, you have to upload the photos and the descriptions.
You have to worry about everything's kind of...
Yeah, the framework is there. So Shopify is like WordPress for an online marketplace, basically. The framework is all set up, you just have to fill it in. But there are ways to tweak it and get the most out of it, right? Whereas I can easily put up a Shopify site, but I can't easily tweak it, right? I need help with that.
If you were my client and you came to me for marketing, you said you had a Shopify site, I would never convince you that that's not the way to go. I would ask you questions about your business. What is Shopify not doing for you? What is your marketing plan? If your site looks good and functions the way it should, and there's nothing wrong with Shopify at all, then all you need is help with marketing. A lot of web developers will try to say it's your website that's broken. 9 times out of 10, it's not. I've seen horrible looking websites perform really, really well, and I've seen really good looking ones that don't do anything. So each situation is different. The reason that I use WordPress, or at least I have been, is because it takes away a lot of the heavy lifting, user management, adding images to a site, allowing my client to play so they feel comfortable with it. And then the other part of it is the Woocommerce integration, which is like the shopping cart for Shopify, but it's directly integrated into WordPress. So what works really well with e-commerce is when your content matches the product that you're selling. And when you're dealing with traditional e-commerce like BigCommerce, Shopify, I used OpenCart for years. All they do is the shopping cart part. They don't handle the content management side of it very well, usually. The WooCommerce and WordPress do a very good job with that. And the entry is, it's like I said, it's free. WooCommerce doesn't cost you a cent. WordPress is also free. I have a couple of clients that are spending well up to $200 or $300 on Shopify a month with all the bells and whistles they've got. You get nickel and dime from every single additional plugin you add to that. Now, not saying that they don't work well, but a good portion of my clients can't afford it, or they just don't want to spend the money to do that. And then the other thing is that I have direct access to the source code for both WordPress and WooCommerce that I can make it do anything. I have a client that's he does security guard trainings, and he has different instructors on different islands, and he wants to charge. They train their student, and then they need to buy a certificate, and I run it through WordPress and WooCommerce. And it took me 2 days to build it because all the infrastructure is already there to handle the shopping cart and all of that. So it saved him a ton of money. If I was building that from scratch, it would have been a few $1,000s, but for him it was like $500.
That's a good point. Can we stay on that for a minute without giving away all of your secrets? What would a small company need to do to get a decent website up and running now with an e-commerce platform ability?
Sure.
What is that? How long does that take? Assuming they use a professional.
Correct.
How long does it take? And in round terms, what does that cost?
So there's basically 3 different ways to get a website now. There's you hire a freelancer, you go on Craigslist, you go to Upwork, or there's a bunch of different places where you can outsource it and go find somebody to help you, right? And you can build it relatively inexpensive. The other way is to hire a full-blown agency like Orange Rock or Revacom or Anthology is another big marketing agency. And they'll charge you, they won't touch anything for under $15,000. The sweet spot are the guys that do it like me, and there's a few of us that are really, really good at it, that we do this for a living, this is all that we do, and our customer service is going to reflect that. The freelancer, you're not going to get great customer service, and the big guy, you're probably not either, because they're just so busy and you're just a number for the most part. So round numbers, when I started doing this, a website would be like $2,000, $2,500, $3,000, right? Ballpark for an e-commerce site. Now I can do it on every client's different, but I can do it on a monthly. So if you can only afford $100 a month, I can do it. I can help you. I can help you get started. I've got no problem helping a small business get off the ground, and I can price it any way that works for you.
How about, that's building the website. Now, the other important part is the server that the website's actually on. What are you recommending there?
Siteground, 100%.
Where is that?
That's the domain name Siteground. They're a hosting company. They're out of California. I've been doing this for almost 20 years. They are by far the best I've ever had.
So you mean
They're
most of their
awesome.
servers are in Los Angeles or San Jose?
They are, and they are fantastic. Best customer service I've ever seen with a host.
What is that?
Siteground? The WP Engine is the biggest one. They're awesome, fantastic, but they just doubled their rates basically. They're $39 a month now. I think it used to be $29.
So most of your clients, do you host their sites for them at Siteground, or do you work on their server, whatever that is?
Both.
But what's most? I mean, what's the trend?
I've got probably 50 hosting accounts. I've got 30 people that are on some sort of a monthly retainer where I include hosting. But I have what's called a VPS server, which is I purchase ahead of time a block.
Virtual private server.
Virtual private server. I purchase a block of hosting, and I've maxed it out, so it's better than you can get shared hosting. I charge $20 a month.
Can you explain a little bit about servers, just for people who might not understand the options that are available for servers? And
Sure.
Share, like a managed versus
Yeah.
a sharing.
So the easiest way to explain hosting is like an apartment building. I used to live at 1717 Alloway, and you could say that that was my hosting account. And I lived in the apartment 2606, and each apartment in the building is a separate, smaller hosting account for my website. And all of the stuff I have in that apartment is the code, the images, the content, the videos, all of that is the things that live inside that apartment. I've used GoDaddy, I've used Bluehost, and like now I'm with Siteground. their costs are very reasonable and their customer service is top notch. I wouldn't recommend anybody else at this point. Very good.
Good.
Can you break down the difference in responsibilities between you as the webmaster and a client to have a website go from a blank screen to something that you showed us with the dollar shaped?
Yeah, so that's where customer service, depending on the host you're using, is very important. If something breaks on your site, to be honest with you, it's your responsibility as the website owner. The hosting account, for the most part, they don't help you with it.
Well, I mean, if I hire you to do a website for me,
Sure.
where does your responsibility end and my responsibility begin?
When you're my client, my responsibility never ends. I handle it all the way through, all the way to the end.
So you'll take the pictures and write the words?
I can. But everything comes at a little bit of a cost though, right? So the more time that's spent, usually the cost increases a little bit, but I can handle it all the way through. Most can now. Most of the agencies in my realm are like that. They take it from start to finish.
So copywriting and all that?
Correct. I can help you with that. Translation services, I have that available too. I don't do it myself. I just have people that I've worked with in the past that are really good. Like you brought up earlier that you need to make sure that the way the site is translated fits correctly, right? So you don't get in any trouble. And for my Japanese language translation, I have a guy that used to live here. And he lives in New York now. But he still does all my Japanese translating because he knows the market here and he translates for the people that are going to be seeing it here. Yes, ma'am?
Compared to GoDaddy and the site you told us about, what's the difference?
Customer service. Customer service and reliability.
Repeat the question.
So the question is what's the difference between the hosting company that I recommended and GoDaddy? GoDaddy is probably the biggest, but with that, you're just a number. All of my domains are hosted with, the domain name is the name of your website. All of my domains are over at GoDaddy. They do a fantastic job with that. They're absolutely perfect.
Yeah, I have the same thing.
I would never in a million years ever host with them ever again. I've had clients that have had bad experiences, not just me personally, but I've had clients that have had bad experiences with it.
You ever heard of a company called InMotion Hosting?
I have.
I've heard very good things about them.
Yep.
Do you think the price is also a big difference for GoDaddy and
No, that's the point with Siteground. Their pricing is really good. I'm a business owner in Hawaii, so I'm always looking at how much it costs, right? I was at Bluehost for almost 10 years, and when I moved to Siteground, there was about a 15% increase in the price, the cost to me, but the customer service was 50% better. So it was a huge, huge win for me. I actually migrated probably a dozen sites from GoDaddy, Bluehost, InMotion, Network Solutions over to Siteground, out of my control, where I don't have any control over it. They just move them. I help them move it.
But if a company like Yvonne, if she hires you, you could make it such that, or somebody like you, she could make it, or you could make it so that she never deals with the hosting company, right? She's just dealing with you, basically.
100%. I called Bluehost last week for a client. I was on hold for 45 minutes. That's, yeah, crazy. I'm one of the few that you call that I'll answer the phone. I'm always around.
Please, more questions.
Okay, I'm gonna change it up a little bit.
Sure.
Okay.
Tax as a function of your cart
Yes.
and integrating that for overseas sales.
You don't have to pay, I don't think you have to pay tax, right?
Not if, well,
Yeah, I know, so is that something that you, like if you're drop shipping, I mean, you don't have to pay tax in theory, from my understanding. But does the cart automatically by location, zip code, etc.,
Correct.
Is there a functionality for that?
100%. So Hawaii, or on Oahu, we have the 4.712, I think it is, right? And then Outer Islands is 4.5, is that correct? Yeah, so the shopping cart differentiates by zip code.
And that would include your international.
That is correct.
If you were stocking product in Japan and then somebody ordered it from your website and you shipped it from your inventory to that person in Japan, then you have to pay Japanese sales tax, right? But the thing, you have to be very, very careful that if you're drop shipping something from here to Japan, obviously you have to know what the shipping cost is, but you really need to know, are they going to pay any inbound duty or tariff on that good when it gets to Japan, right? A lot of small companies don't ever take that into consideration. What's the inbound tax, basically, the duty, the tariff? You follow me?
Well, and who would handle that?
You would have to. You'd have to set it up so that the site,
Set it on the platform.
yeah, so that the site knew to advise the customer, this is the total cost. And then you would ship it with a company that could handle that tax once it got to Japan. FedEx or UPS or somebody you'll pay that automatically, but it's wrapped up into the cost that the customer pays. You don't want to surprise the customer such that they get a package from FedEx in Tokyo, and the FedEx guy says, oh, by the way, we have to charge 12.7% tax because it's, some exotic wood or something,
Yes, sir. Oh, sorry.
Sure.
So, we just started the new website, which hosts in the e-commerce section a little bit, and we have the account in Amazon for a couple of years, and for those years that we didn't put any investment or any efforts to move the Amazon account, and I wasn't really in charge of it, and my wife, who handles those orders, and she's saying that, Amazon, that as an account, we're not really making any profit because we sell products, but, she gets quite a bit of charges from fulfillment charges and fees and really a low margin we get. So with that concept that we kind of started to develop our own website with New and having more of an e-commerce,
Sure.
put more investment to it, but we don't want to lose the account like a presence in Amazon.
Understand.
We want to make profit from both. And what's the concept we have to have to run, both e-commerce?
Got it. Okay, so the question is how do I leverage my Amazon with my current e-commerce store?
And especially with the shipping, that we not really offering any free shipping, and for the Amazon part, we don't really have to pay any shipping to them.
Correct.
So, the balance. I haven't really done any investigation, both of them, but just wanted to get more of a general idea how we have to.
Sure. So I've had a couple of clients that have done that in the past. What you got to look at with Amazon going forward is that's your advertising platform. So going forward, leave your Amazon there. It's all about brand recognition and remarketing to those people. So hopefully you can get an additional sale directly from your website after the fact. If you're just looking, and I've had clients where they've, like you, have lost money on the initial sale on Amazon, but they become a customer and you can resell them. You can offer them a different product next time where they purchase it directly from you and not straight from Amazon. Amazon does that quite a bit. Amazon is great for getting eyeballs and selling a lot of volume, but the profit margins can be very low.
I think even less profit with Rakuten. People that I've consulted to on a marketing standpoint say the Rakuten fees really beat them down.
Here's the real problem with Amazon is that Amazon grabs all the data from what gets sold there and they use it for themselves. They'll find your product and do it themselves. They'll add it or find another distributor or they'll, which is not great.
See, as a marketing person at my core, sales and marketing, I feel like just that point when you are reliant so heavily on Amazon or Rakuten or any other site like that, you're losing a lot of customer interaction, and you're not able to build up your database, if you will, and how to communicate with customers and send them messages and work
Yeah, you don't get any of that
one-on-one
data.
with them. You're really relying on Amazon, Rakuten, and the others to do that. So I think, of course, it depends on your business and what your product is. I always go back to my conversation. You've probably, if you've been to these seminars before, you've heard me say, I think that the companies from Hawaii that are best positioned to do well in Japan or other markets around the world are the products that are unique. They are a bit expensive and can absorb into the pricing the shipping that's required to get them to the foreign markets. And those are the products that probably aren't going to do extremely well on Amazon or Rakuten, because those tend to be very price sensitive products, right? That's my opinion.
Then I can just sort of like forget about it. Not really completely Amazon, but just don't have to put so much weight on Amazon that take it as sort of advertisement, just the cost.
Well, what you have to understand is that Amazon is no different than Google. It's a search engine, basically. So all you do is you type in your keyword you're looking for, and Amazon shows you the product for that particular keyword. So by default on Google, your product on your website is going to have more weight than a product that's being sold on Amazon. So if you do the search engine optimization correctly for your products, over time, your product is going to show up higher than an Amazon listing would. The benefit with Amazon is that even though it's just a normal e-commerce site, it's an enclosed ecosystem, right? So people tend to fill their shopping carts up with a bunch of stuff, and then they check out all at one time. That's where the advantage is there, but there's a huge cost to that. It's always better. Organic search is the #1 way to make money with any website. For me personally and my clients, it doesn't cost anything once you get it set up correctly, or it's very low on the monthly, right, if you have one. And the people that are finding exactly what they're looking for in a search term tend to pay more. You don't have to discount it as much. So it's a win-win there. And like he was saying, depending on the keyword of your particular product, it can be very easy to get you ranked pretty high on Google if it's specific, and there's volume to it.
This was a slide, I alluded to this much earlier in the day, that this was from the US Commerce Department. They have this internal Ecommerce Lab, and they have a specific presentation about setting up e-commerce for cross-border transactions or international transactions. But I really liked how they spelled this out. I don't think I could have done this better myself, in how selling from your own US-based site, or say a Hawaii-based site, shipping to Japan versus setting up your own in-country site, and then third party would be Amazon or Rakuten or what have you, or selling to a distributor through your site. I think that this really spells out sort of the pros and cons very well. And personally, I just believe that most of the companies that I consult to in Hawaii, they could do really well trying to get to this position here, right? Having that inventory in Japan and shipping from that inventory, assuming they can get enough inventory to Japan to make it cost effective, right? Per unit price. That's really where I think we can do it, because we can build in free shipping, which everybody loves, and we can get it to the purchaser within 48 hours. Domestic Japan shipping is really efficient, hyper efficient.
How many of you do a subscription of some sort with Amazon? Have you guys started doing that at all? You guys have anything on subscription?
You mean like the
like household goods?
Yeah.
You ever do that? It's awesome. And a lot of people are doing that now. That's another trend in e-commerce that's gaining popularity, is having a subscription of some sort. If you have a product that's a consumable, like coffee, we have coffee delivered every 6 weeks to our house, so we never, ever, ever run out of coffee. I do that with cat food. I do that with laundry detergent now. I'm actually doing a coffee site where they're gonna have a subscription-based model part of it. And they discount, the gentleman earlier said, how do I do a discount, but then make up the money later? You do it with a subscription. You give them a discount on their first subscription, you sign them up. A lot of people don't cancel the subscription right away, just the way it goes, and you can make your profit on the second or third sale.
Well, that's what the Dollar Shave Club does.
It's 100% that. It doesn't work for everything, but for some things it can be very profitable for you.
Let's go over very quickly a couple of the websites you were recommending. Let me bring that up. Bear with me for a second, everybody, while I close out of this stuff. How about we had Mao's local overview?
We can do that for somebody if you want.
So this was one of the ones that Gary had talked about, Mao's. And you would come over here for small company, click on this link, get my free listing score.
Who wants to give it a shot?
Anybody want to be a guinea pig?
All we need is a business name and a zip code.
Manoa Honey? And then we'll
Give
do
it a shot.
Yvonne next. So, oh, sorry. I can't see what I'm typing.
There you go. Is that you? Perfect. So that's a good step. That means you're verified by somebody. That's awesome. Oh. So scroll down. 17% out of, to be honest with you, most people don't get to 100 because there's just so many variables, and the reason why they do this is to help you, maximize this. So most of the clients that I do are around 78 to 85%. So if you scroll back up to the top real quick, I'll show you the key parts of this.
Friendly service.
Decent prices.
Friendly service and decent prices, so that's good.
So scroll back up and go to the incomplete section. That's the one we want to talk about. So this lists all of the different things that you don't have a listing on or what you're missing. So for Google, for your Google Plus, your Google for Business, they're saying you need 5 images in there. So what you can do is you don't have to pay these guys anything. You just go to Google and load up 5 images and then come back in 6 weeks and see if your rank's gone up. What this thing will do, though, is it'll create all of these listings for you. You just plug in all your information. It'll send out the API, the direct connection to all of these different companies, and create all of the Yahoo and Yellow Pages and all those, except for the Yelp. You got to do that one yourself, but all these other guys will do it for you.
But this aspect currently is free, just to kind of get a quick report card.
What I use it for is the monthly reporting. You don't get that if you don't pay for it. And you don't get the automated part of that. For me and my clients, it's just $100, right? And not having to create all these listings saves me a day. So it's just cheaper to just pay them. And it's less time, and you can do it yourself. This is the first place I start. The other key part to this is not just the incomplete, is the inconsistent. You got to be very careful with this. Is if your home business address is 321 Manoa Drive, and on Yelp you're listed as 321 Manoa Drive Suite 232, Google thinks you're 2 different businesses. They don't know that they're the same. You've got to make sure that your address and business information, phone number, everything needs to be consistently the same on every single place you post it, which is, again, what these guys do for you. So you make it once, and they distribute it for you.
I've noticed lately that's a big problem, even here at the Foreign Trade Zone.
Oh.
The system wants to, like the U.S. Post Office or UPS or whatever, it wants to auto-correct your address to some master database that removes your suite number, your unit number, or whatever it is. You have to be very careful with that.
You do. How many of you have a P.O. box for your business? Anybody using a P.O. box? No? That's good. What you can have is you can go to a mailbox and get a physical address. Google doesn't recognize P.O. boxes anymore. They think you're spam right off the bat if your address is a P.O. box. Make sure it's a physical address.
That's interesting.
Is there any like downfall to like creating listings in all these places that you're not necessarily gonna like keep up with?
Don't need to. Because the thing is that these all have a very high domain authority, which means that if your website link is on any one of these sites and Google spiders them and sees you, you get a boost. There's nothing negative about it at all. You don't even need to update them. You don't need to touch them after you get them set up.
Just try one more. How do I get back?
Just use your back button. There you go. And you got to go to local. There you go. That's fine.
Yvonne, what are you?
Crochet, Crochet, right, Rite.
You put in your zip code. Let's see what comes up.
My zip code 96720.
Let's see what comes up. Hit the button.
Oh, nothing.
So in order for this to start tracking you, there's two things. You have to have one of the two things, and they're both verifiable via a postcard. So if you do a Google business account with Google for Business, they'll send you a postcard to your physical address to verify you, and you got to punch in a code. And Yelp does the same thing. So this will only start tracking unless you have one of the two.
Try my zip code 96749. Oh, still nothing.
Okay. Anything else up here? You talked about intelligent live
Yeah,
chat.
so that's the Go Squared. What this does for me is that Google Analytics can be very confusing, and it doesn't give me the data in a snapshot. So what I do is my account, I have a little button up there where he has InCube. So from time to time throughout the day, I just click on it and see what my site traffic's like, and I could chat with somebody if there's somebody there or not.
What does this cost?
I think they just raised the rates on things. Keep going up. They just raised the rates on this. I think it's $100 a year. I think it's $100 a month is what I pay for this thing. I think. But I have like I said, I have up to 10 accounts that I put on, and I got 6 of my clients using it.
And then I know like this email company called Active Campaign. Is that right?
Yeah.
If you're sending out newsletters and email marketing.
So this is similar to MailChimp. I'm sure you guys have heard of MailChimp. What this does a really good job of is automating things. So for instance, if somebody comes to my site and they fill out my SEO report, they get added to the database, they get some information, and then over time, they'll get different things regarding SEO. It's just informational. I'm not trying to sell anybody anything because people are just going to unsubscribe. But if you add value and you give them information, then they'll stay on your list for a while, and maybe they'll refer you to somebody else. For me, that's how it works.
Pricing
and the pricing is super reasonable for these guys. I think it's like $9 a month, I think, or it's $17. Very reasonable. Newsletters is the marketing automation that I really use it for. It does it all for me.
Here's an example of a testimonial you were referring to earlier.
Correct.
Testimonials are huge.
Oh, man.
But especially huge in Asia.
There's also a thing that just came out probably 6 months ago that's really awesome. Have you guys seen it where at the bottom of the screen it'll notify you that so-and-so just bought 3 bags of Kona coffee? That supposedly works really well now too. Mm-hmm. It creates a sense of urgency that there are people shopping actively.
What else?
Yep. And I think there was the last one that I sent you, the email one. I think I emailed it to you. that last link about the Japanese translation, I think, or marketing in Japan.
Oh, I can't, I'll really screw up the.
No, don't worry about it.
Okay, any final questions or comments before we move on? Gary will hang out for a little while after if you want to ask him any sort of confidential questions or what have you. Please.
Gary, real quick, how important is it to have your site SSL security certificate on top of that?
Really important now. Google is starting to ding you for a couple of things. Site speed and an SSL certificate is very important. Another reason that I use Siteground is that they have, I think it's called AnyEncrypt, I think. It's free. So with a traditional hosting account, like GoDaddy or Bluehost, you have to buy a dedicated IP address to get an SSL certificate. And the dedicated IP, which means a specific IP address that associates your SSL certificate with your particular shopping cart, needs to be specific. And there's a limited amount of those. So it's $5 a month. And then they charge you, I don't know, $79 a year. SiteGround doesn't charge you for either. You don't need it. You don't need a dedicated, and you don't need an SSL. AnyEncrypt, I think that's what it's called.
Okay, with that, let's close this seminar. Thank you very much for attending. Big round of applause for Gary.
Thank you very much.
Our next seminar is March 29th. It's on scaling up operations. If you got a big order, say, from Japan, and you needed to fulfill that, we have the people from Innovate Hawaii will be here to cover that in good detail. It's a great presentation. We did it last about 18 months ago. Okay, thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
Online, bye. Thank you for attending. See you soon.